Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Film Room Podcast. I guess we could call this Season 2, Joby, of the Film Room Podcast. I'm Joe Baris, your host, along with my co-host, Joby Fawcett. Joby, how's your summer going?
Well, it's gone, Joe.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a funny story, Joe. My summer break officially ended on July 25th, right?
Yeah.
That was when the grand edict was dropped upon me that I had to get some stuff done by that date.
That's right.
The interesting part about that is, Joe, as you know, I took several days off in late June where I disappeared to a undisclosed location. And the next thing I knew, I had to have the preseason football game phase completed. So
it's true.
It was an interesting summer, to say the least. Now, Joe, it started off, everybody seems to have this very short-term memory loss.
Yes.
And if you recall, June was extremely cold for summer, of course, around 65, 75 degrees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of rain.
A lot of rain.
Now, in August here, we've had a lot of dry, a lot of sun, and a lot of heat, which is perfect for my annual tour around the camps and preseason football. So it's been a weird summer, but as I said, Joe, July 25th was my last official day of summer.
Sure, yeah. And you were, you weren't, I'm sure you weren't doing anything before that at all.
Well, we did a little bit of work. You know, we try to stay busy.
Dream game
even during our off time, we did the dream game. We snuck that in.
Exactly. No.
I actually, Joe, full disclosure, I was able to sneak away and visit my daughter in New York. Of course, many people don't realize that she does live in New York City. She works for Columbia University, and she had been asking me to come and visit her new apartment, which is much closer to the city, or Columbia University, rather. I had not been back to see her since I moved her in when she had lived in Brooklyn.
Right.
And in our time there in New York, Joe, we went to Yankee Stadium. We saw the Yankees salvage a 3-game series against the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yep.
It was quite exciting. I enjoyed touring Monument Park. You know, I'm not a big baseball guy, Joe, but history has always been a big part of my, interest in sports. So I enjoyed that tour, and it was certainly a culture shock for someone who lives in the country to have to travel via subway in New York City everywhere we went, because my daughter does not own a vehicle, and I'm glad that she does not.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting weekend, to say the least, for me, Joe, and I've kind of stayed busy. We've done some work. We did a little research for a project or two, and here we are, ready. Today was the final day, can you believe it, Joe, of year 16. The tour around the camps wrapped up this morning.
It's crazy. And instead of you taking a minute to breathe, I've got to be like, Joby, let's do a podcast.
Well, actually, Joe, I know you're kind of trying to seek some refuge and some time to yourself here, sipping Mai Tais poolside.
That's right.
So I know you have the summer concert series that you've been involved in. I don't want to interrupt your schedule. So I'm kind of surprised I hadn't heard from you earlier, but I think you understood the avalanche of work I was trying to navigate, and I certainly appreciate that. But I'm looking forward to Season 2 of the Film Room Podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joby, you did mention the 2 projects, and I really want to bring that up and commend you. Your quarter-century team, offense and defense, and also your story about the Lackawanna Football Conference keeping their roster numbers up so they could all schools keep playing football. I really thought you did an excellent job on those. Those are, that content doesn't grow on trees, Joby. You can't just pick
it's a new theory, Joe, that we have about content creation. If you ever surf through Facebook now, if you look at many of your friends' profiles, you'll see that they no longer have jobs. They're content creators, or
right.
And I'll be honest with you, Joe, these were two projects. The one, which I started very early in the summer during my hiatus while I was on Fiji Island, was the quarter century team. And Joe, as you know, anytime you take on something of that nature, you do so with the understanding there's always going to be positive and negative feedback
Yes.
from your audience. And I went into this realizing first and foremost that anybody left off the first team who felt they deserved to be on the first team were going to be upset.
Yep.
And coaches of those players were going to be upset. And fans of certain players or schools, family members that also were going to be upset. I get all that. So what I really had to do, Joe, after I listed, and you know how I work these things, I went through every all-region team from the year 2000 to 2024. And I put the players and profiles together in groups. Okay, running backs, linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, etc. And I had these panels up on my laptop or whatever, and
Yeah.
I just started kind of listing people on a separate file, who I thought would deserve or certainly had the credentials to be considered an all quarter century type player.
Right.
And Joe, I want to say figure we picked 30 to 25 and 30 kids a year for the all region team. Let's give or take guys who were on multiple years. And you're talking thousands of players.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyone can sit back and look at the list, okay? The first team, the second team, third team, and honorable mention, and begin to argue who deserves what, or, why wasn't this player here or why wasn't that player there? But you didn't do the homework. I did.
Right.
And more importantly, Joe, and I haven't emphasized this enough, but I have a couple of times on the tour around the camps, and I thought it was something that I appreciated, but when someone would ever confront me about who they thought deserved a spot, okay, I said, okay, well, make your argument, make your case.
Yeah.
And that they would, I had fans or whatever, emails come in, and I had some text messages from people, and the thing was, I listened.
Yeah.
Or I read a response, and I always came back with, well, that is great. That is your opinion, and you are 100% entitled to it.
Right.
Just like I am entitled to my opinion.
Right.
And my opinion was this. And so it was neat. I enjoyed it. It was a trip down memory lane for me, Joe.
Oh, certainly.
Remember, I didn't just do this on a whim and relied totally on research. I also took into account seeing many of these players, if not all of them, and I would say I saw all of them, live and in person. Not just in regular season games, Joe. I'm talking district playoff games, state playoff games, games against out-of-state competition. Those things all factored in for me.
Right.
And then those resumes that I had built kind of fed what I was putting together in terms of and I was really strict about first team. There was no wiggle room here. It was going to be 2 backs, 3 receivers,
Yep,
to account for the way people run offenses now, and 1 quarterback. You remember too, Joe, around June 20th or 21st, I had toyed with the idea of just listing the 25 best players.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? No, this is what I want. I want to be able to say when my career is over that in the first 25 years of covering high school football, these were the best players that I had seen. So it was a lot of work. It drew a lot of positive feedback, a lot of negative feedback, which I expected. But if you look at the bios of the players who were selected to that first team, Joe, you can certainly appreciate the accomplishments and the impacts that those athletes had on this area, high school football, for the last 25 years. And I thought it came out really well done in terms of the way we presented it in print,
Yep,
in the Times-Tribune, which you had a big hand in. Our good friend Jared Pallo
Jared
put it
Pallo,
together
yep.
graphically. And online, I thought it was fantastic, and it certainly got a lot of traffic. And in doing that, I hope I encouraged our sports family out there in Northeast Pennsylvania to subscribe to the Times-Tribune.com, because that is the future. Get there. We're going to be doing a lot of this neat stuff, and that's where you're going to be able to find it.
Absolutely, Joby. I really enjoyed it. And I think the part that was probably most difficult to navigate was and you made this very, very clear. It's based on their high school careers. So
I didn't want to get kooky, Joe.
Right.
Look,
which is how it should be.
Right. And players develop differently. And of course, we had several of the players that were on that team went on to great collegiate careers and professional careers.
Yep.
Okay. But that wasn't taken into account. Mm-hmm. It was what you did in high school and really, Joe, not just the play on the field, the impact you had on the game. I use Evan Krakey, the quarterback from Lakeland, as an example.
Yep.
You have to remember, he set the state passing record.
Right.
The time he played.
Yeah.
Now that record, that 7,447 yards, is no longer a big number in the grand scheme of things. But at the time,
you gotta look at the time period.
He set the state record. Yeah. He broke the mark held by Berwick's Ron Powless, who many would argue for his time and his era was the best quarterback in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, that was taken into consideration. That impact that he had on high school football. The offensive lineman, I was really strict on the first team, not so much so on the second, third, and honorable mention. I wanted 2 tackles and 2 guards, because those are 2 very different positions, and I wanted a true center.
Right.
And if you look at the resumes of those players, Morris Jackson is a 2-time Hookie Reap Award winner out of Lackawanna Trail. Keithy Galinsky, who was the guard out of Lakeland, I think he was the only guard in the last 25 years to win the Hookie Reap Award as the best offensive lineman in Lackawanna County. So there you go. These are impact players.
Right.
Eric Strive from West Scranton, at the time he was playing high school football, Joe, he was the number 1 lineman recruit in the country.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Again,
yep.
These were all things that were factored in. If you had been an offensive player of the year or a defensive player of the year in the past, or a multiple offensive player of the year, like a Michael Perry from Dunmore, that was taken into consideration, strong consideration.
Right.
So it was a labor of love, as I explained in the project. And I had to make some really hard decisions, but that led me to, Joe, and I know I kind of cleared a lot of this stuff with you, and I got this idea, I full disclosure, from another website that I had seen had picked a second, third team, and then some honorable mentions. And that really cleared a lot of my problems up, because then I had a true second team,
right,
a true third team, and that honorable mention list really filled out a lot of the guys who were award winners in the past 25 years who deserved consideration. So, yeah, a lot of players, a lot of great players, Joe, and a lot of guys who helped their teams even have big impacts by reaching state finals. So I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I don't necessarily like the grief I had to put up with afterward, but the support from so many people really made it all worthwhile and balanced things out for sure.
Absolutely. I thought it was a very, very cool project. And not that you need to speak on this one too, but I really found your numbers, LFC numbers piece, really, really interesting. It's something I don't think about, the rosters, keeping the roster sizes up, and keeping teams where they need to be, and I just thought you did a really nice job with that one too.
Joe, what has gotten into me with all this number crunching?
You've never been good with numbers. No,
I'm horrible with numbers. Thank goodness we have a calculator, and we have an actual computer program that runs our stat packages for us, because I'm awful with numbers. But okay, Joe, listen, that that project, I'll tell you how the fire got struck for that one just real quickly here. Because year in and year out, one of the big questions I deal with from coaches and fans is, what do you think of high school football now? Remember, we're in the year 2025, Joe. I know sometimes we have to be reminded about that
Yeah.
because you're in a kind of a time lapse at some point. But here's the thing. The game has certainly changed. Participation has changed for a lot of reasons. Remember, we're 5 years out of COVID now, the shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
So it took some work for these teams and these programs to get kids back interested and involved in high school athletics. So the idea behind the project was, for me, to show not only that the Lackawanna Football Conference teams have been able to maintain some level of stability, but they had to find creative ways to do that.
Right.
Just to maintain their programs and stay competitive. For example, Joe, I brought up the move away from a freshman league to junior high teams, 7th and 8th grade teams. And then freshmen who are worthy enough to at least be on the varsity, maybe not play, but practice and gain experience at the varsity level can do so. Those who are not ready for that level of competition, even 9th graders, can play on that junior high team, that 7th and 8th grade program team. And that incorporates those 7th and 8th graders who in the past have played on the junior football level. They get into your program earlier. So now you get a little bit of a way to refill the cabinet much quicker with more experienced players.
Right.
So I thought that was a real neat thing that they did. And I also brought up, Joe, these co-sponsorships. Okay, we know the story up there at Montrose, co-sponsoring with Elk Lake. They've been under some serious scrutiny and have really battled the numbers crunch up there. They now have, I believe, 32 or 34 players on their roster this year. So that's a big improvement for them. And they had to do so by going independent, withdrawing from the Lackawanna Football Conference.
Right.
And we know Carbondale area co-sponsors with Forest City to maintain its roster size. So some schools had to get creative to do it, but all of them have been able to maintain that little bit of stability where they can still put a competitive product out there on the field week in and week out, despite all the distractions and the social options that kids have today via their computer or their cell phone. So I thought it was a pretty interesting look at how coaches and administrations have also done a good job of trying to encourage kids to keep coming out for the sport and keep feeding that line of players in their program.
Absolutely, Joby. And you've on top of all that, Joby, you've and preparing for the football tab, the Game Face preview tab, which will be coming out in Sunday's paper. A lot
So
of
you mean
great
the one I
stuff
had done in July 25th?
Joby, it's finally coming out. It's finally coming out.
A lot of that material.
Oh,
man.
man.
I'll have to read it on Sunday like the rest of the audience.
Exactly. Oh, man.
I'll be stunned. Wow, you actually wrote that?
Yeah. I don't remember writing this.
Oh, holy smokes. Yeah, no, so that does come out Sunday, Joe. I just posted a copy of the cover on Joby Fawcett, the Times-Tribune on Facebook, so fans can get a kind of little bit of a teaser.
Yep.
Make sure you pick up the print product, the Sunday Times. I'll also, Joe, be posting links to the Times-Tribune.com on Sunday to the individual team pages that will be part of our package as well.
Oh, excellent. Perfect.
We want to encourage fans out there to go digital. Subscribe to the Times-Tribune.com.
That's right. Joby, isn't there like a deal out there? It's like $1 for like, I don't know, 3 months, a year, 6 months?
There's only one deal maker in the United States right now, but I do understand that we are offering a deal for subscriptions online.
That's right. So you have been around the camps.
I have, Joe.
As you as you have said. And I got to tell you,
One of these years, a couple of years ago, our good friend and former colleague Herb Smith did a couple of the stops with me. He went
right,
on a couple of the days because at the time when we actually had some bodies who could do some other things, he would get some pictures for me
right,
while I was doing the video. You have to remember, Joe, back in the old days, I had a tripod and a camcorder, and I was walking around. I had to set it up somewhere, and I was filming from the sideline. Now with my iPhone, I am right there in the action. The coaches laugh because I walk right up in the middle of a play. I don't worry about anything. I got blocked today during one of the running drills.
Jeez, Joby.
Yeah, it's a physical toll. It's a
Yeah.
mental toll, but
Do you have to file for workers' comp? You're good?
fortunately, I've been putting the time in the weight room over the summer, and
That's true.
I was able to withstand the shock of the actual kickout block, but I didn't even see it coming.
I wish we had video of that. That'd be awesome.
Oh, I have it,
I was going to say, you probably haven't.
but I'm not going to disclose that to the audience out there. But let's just say it would have been tragic had I been a little bit out of shape.
Sure, certainly. Joby, I got to tell you, obviously last week we had the heat acclimatization week.
You love that word, Joe.
I do. I love it, every syllable. So I got to tell you, I would have died out there, but the athletes certainly got acclimated to the heat. That's for sure.
Well,
I would have been sweating out there, Joby.
yes, Joe. And listen, you're usually sweating when you're taking in the latest release in the Cinemark theater.
That's right. I'm sweating right now.
Worried about putting together the Take Two blog afterwards. Joe, thank goodness that they have HEAT week.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I would encourage the PIAA to restructure it. But you know me, Joe. I don't like to throw my opinions out there too much with the PIAA because then it looks like I'm piling on. But my suggestion would be you make a week earlier and you really only need 3 days to get the kids into good condition for the HEAT Act. You don't need a whole week.
Sure.
But again, those recommendations were handed down to the PIAA, the health arm of the board of directors. Okay, so their doctors, their medical team, their trainers give them the advice that would be the best way to get kids ready for what was going on this week, which was the 2 intense practices with the pads on, full contact, official first day, the whole 9 yards. So, yeah, it's a really good thing that they were able to get those couple of days in where they're supposed to be doing some conditioning. And I always put conditioning in air quotes because, Joe, more teams need to do much more. I think some football teams in our area would benefit greatly by bringing in some track coaches to put together some conditioning drills and workouts. I know it's not football adaptive, but honestly, if that's what the goal is of HEAT Act week, part of your practice structure should include some sort of a conditioning workout put together by someone who knows how to kind of train the athletes rather than just be an assistant football coach. That being said, this week was brutally warm. Joe,
Yes.
Thank goodness I put on plenty of sunscreen because my bald head is scorched. The sun has beaten down on the players every day with the exception of one. The afternoon trip on Wednesday, the skies opened and it was like you dumping out your lemonade, Joe, for a cocktail. Somebody just started pouring water, and I feel awful for those who suffered flash flood damage.
Yeah.
I have experience with flash flood damage. It's not fun.
No.
So, and that is a year-long recovery, and I still haven't recovered from it. So that was very dangerous conditions, but that was the only day.
Right.
We had inclement weather. We actually were able to get to Holy Cross later on in the evening when the storm had kind of kicked off to shore. But every day this week has been hot and the sun has been out.
Right.
And it's a credit to the kids to get through these 5 days in preparation for tomorrow's scrimmages.
Absolutely, and we are recording this on Friday, August the 15th. That is, yeah, we figure this could be a little bit of a companion piece to, as we have mentioned, the Game Face preview edition, which will be coming out on Sunday in the Times-Tribune. But let me pick your brain a little bit on what you saw at these camps, Joby. Maybe we could take a look at division by division. Division 1, obviously we have North Pocono, Scranton Prep, Abington Heights, Delaware Valley, Valley View, Scranton, and Walnut-Pawpack. Now, I'm not asking you to go one by one, Joby, but what was there anything that stuck out to you, when you were visiting any of these camps that you want to discuss?
Yeah, so let's start off in generalities, Joe.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Division I schools have what I would consider a built-in advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Just by the nature of their enrollments, they're going to have more bodies to work with at practices.
Right.
Okay. So their practices, when I attend, tend to be a lot more structured in terms of being efficient. Okay. They can line up and run some team stuff against a scout team and not really have any problem putting kids out there who can give them a good look, whether that scout team is on defense or on offense. Okay. So that does make for a little bit more efficient practices for the big schools. Okay. The small schools are very creative, and they do have to find ways to put together scout, whether it run half line or kind of run 7-on-7s and do some things where they can implement like a mixture of starters or experienced players on both scout and the team executing. All that being said, I think all of the teams really worked extremely hard over the course of the last 2 weeks. Now, you remember, Joe, several of my visits took place during HEDAC week, which is a little bit different. There's no hard contact. You can use bags and that stuff, but there's no real collisions that you have to deal with. So you see a different type of format for the practices, okay?
Yep.
But I don't want to go through each team individually. Fans can do that on Sunday with Game Face 2025, the preseason preview edition, which I kind of go through everybody's strengths and weaknesses, and we kind of have some good artwork in there by Sean McKay. But what I will tell you is I really came away with, from the big school division, there are a lot of standout athletes in the Lackawanna Football Conference, Joe.
Yeah.
And there are also quite a few teams that I think are going to have quite an impact on the District 2 playoffs in November. Okay?
Yep.
And a couple which I think can also have an impact on the PIAA playoffs.
Sure.
Okay? However, what I think is the overwhelming theme this year, and I heard it at just about every practice I attended, and that is each team from the Scranton Preps, which is a 3-time defending district champion,
yep,
to Holy Cross, which is trying to keep its program going, to Montrose, which is playing an independent schedule. Everyone is kind of playing the Mission Impossible music at practice. And that is, they want to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Each team is kind of 1 or 2 injuries away from dramatically changing the path that they would take throughout the course of a 10-week season. So what I mean by that is, Joe, coaches have to be extremely careful in practice, and during the course of the season, you really need to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And that is an impossible task. Football is and forever will be a contact sport, and injuries happen, You can't try to prevent them, because if you do that, you don't play at 110% and you're worried about something you can't control. But you can do some things to kind of ease that part of it so that you are healthy at the very least at the end of the season.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, Joby, I took just kind of a look at these Division I teams, and yeah, I kind of, like you kind of touched on it. I don't want to say they're stacked, but there's some really good, obviously established teams. You got your Scranton Prep, which will try to reload after a very good season last year. You got Abington Heights with a Nick Bradley returning. You got Delaware Valley. Delaware Valley is always there. They'll play um, their road schedule at the beginning of the year, playing 2 or 3 games, and then they'll hit the ground running once they start playing teams in the area. You've got North Pocono rising, and you obviously Valley View graduated a lot, but they're still Valley View, and there's a lot. There's a lot here, Joby. I mean, there's like you said, I think these teams could do some damage this year.
Yeah, Joe, I think in Division I in particular, I think there's a real good mix of players who had outstanding seasons as underclassmen and some really fresh faces who are going to be coming in and I think are going to make themselves, a big part of the 2025 season. That's always the case because you're always going to bring underclassmen up to take their role and have their season in the sun, whether they be juniors or seniors. Okay. So let's start just some casual observations from the tour around the camp show. Okay. Mm-hmm. So initially, we didn't even mention this in the pre-show here, but Media Day was held in August as well.
Oh, yes. That's right.
And at that Media Day, Dylan Castor from North Pocono walked, into the Regal Room in Oliphant. And Joe, he's the largest high school human being I have ever seen for a football player.
Yeah.
Okay. We've had some 7-footers play basketball over at Abington Heights.
Yep.
And we've had some real monsters play in the Lackawanna Football Conference recently, including former Lakeland tight end C.J. Dupree, who is now playing tight end with the New England Patriots. Okay. These were big human beings. You may or may not remember Big James McHale from Dunmore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, he was about 6'7". Luke Ritter from Dunmore, about 6'6", 6'7". Joe, Dylan Castor is every bit of 6'8".
Oh, wow.
And he is a legitimate 330 pounds. He is just a massive human being.
Yeah.
So that was the one takeaway I had with North Pocono, and that they have a huge left tackle. They also have quite a bit of experience back, Joe, North Pocono. Now, Cole West is a state, qualifier from track and field. He's a terrific athlete. I can remember back when he was a freshman, Herb Smith, going back to my good friend Herb, he was at one of the games, and I guess one of the fans had told him at the time to keep an eye on Cole West. He was only a freshman. He's going to be the best receiver this area has ever seen. Well, he may or may not be the best receiver the area's ever seen, but I know this: if he was on my team, I would try to get the ball to him in a multiple ways because he is that good an athlete, and he looked the part. Joe, that's one of the things that I find real neat about this tour around the camps, because it is practice, but I also see the growth. I can remember when Cole was a freshman, and you could tell he was a freshman. I hate to say it that way,
sure,
but you could in his facial features, in his the way he would go into a drill, a little bit cautious, a little bit held back. Now he's a junior and he's running around. He's leading by example. He's encouraging young kids who are going through the same things that he went through. And I saw that across the board at all the practices. It's a big part of why our teams really, I think, have success overall throughout the season is they really kind of get that. You know, as you take over your position as an upperclassman, they really help the underclassmen learn the ropes. They were there. They were in that position just a couple of years ago, so they know. But, yeah, so I saw some impressive athletes, Joe. If you want to be, you know, if I can be frank, Mike Isolino from Delaware Valley, Joe, you know, he just kind of, you can tell these Delaware Valley guys, they're just so committed to the program.
Yeah.
It's all they talk about. They just, you know, and they know. Look, Joe, you mentioned those first 3 games. All 3 teams that Delaware Valley will play in the first 4 weeks. We have to go Scranton Prep in there.
Yeah.
All 4 teams are ranked in the state in their respective classifications.
Yeah. Yep.
Joe, this isn't a team that's going to have any question marks if it had to qualify for the college football playoffs.
That's right. That's true. That's true, Joby.
Like the schedule, Joe.
Yeah.
Holy Toledo. Listen, the one thing I do come away with from Delaware Valley, you know, keeping up with that theme of staying healthy, that's a brutal schedule.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and it's gonna take a physical toll on those kids. There's some travel involved in there as well. You know, they're going out to Pittsburgh to play McKeesport, Class 6A team, that first Saturday. So you kind of hope that those 3 games, while important, you want to always win your football. Joe, they take score for a reason.
That's true. You're always telling me.
But Delaware Valley also has to keep in the back of its mind, in the far back of its mind, that the league season opens week 4 with Scranton Prep. So, but yeah, very tough schedule for Delaware Valley to start this season. And Joe, it's just, I like to go to practice. One of the players actually asked me on one of my visits, you know, what do you enjoy most about covering high school football? Now, of course, I love the games, but that's just a small part of it. One, I love to get to know these kids' stories outside of football. You know, I do that a lot during the course of the season.
Yep.
But I also like to go to practices. I started doing this around the tour camp 16 years ago, and I get a lot out of watching a team practice because then I have an idea. Now, Joe, I had to have that preseason top 10 done a month ago.
Right.
But I do have a better feel today of what I can expect from those teams, having seen them practice, instead of just going based upon a sheet of paper that says, I have 5 starters back. I lost 7 starters to graduation. You know, we won 4 games last year at the end. Those things are all important.
Right.
But the most important thing is for me to see these teams practice. And again, the top 10, I believe, is coming out when, Joe? Sunday?
Sunday. Yep. Sunday.
Finally. And that being said, I kind of wish I had a chance. Maybe I'll even dive in and see if I can adjust it based on what I saw here during the course of this tour. But I did come away with some very interesting perspective and impressions of the teams that I visited.
Absolutely, Joby. And it's a good thing, it's a good thing you mentioned that the top 10 hasn't come out yet. I had it here on my sheet. I was going to spoil the whole thing.
I'm glad you didn't.
I know. Let's not
yes,
ruin
man,
that.
That's another reason to get the Sunday Times. The preseason top 10 will be unveiled. But now that I'm thinking about it, Joe, now that we're doing it this way, maybe I will dive in there and take a look. I'll have to refresh my memory. I did it so long ago, I don't even know where anybody's ranked.
I was going to say, I think that's more than fair, Joby. I mean,
give me a chance to kind of look it over.
Exactly. You've had a month, at least, in between. So Joby, anything else?
Just to wrap up Division One.
Yeah.
Listen, week 1, Scranton Prep's going to be at Valley View. That is going to be a dandy after going to both of those practices.
Yep.
Okay. Both of those teams, you can see that they are championship tradition-filled programs. The way that they practice, everything is high intensity. Very little wasted time with over-instructing. It's kind of a weird way for me to put it because you want to have coaches always instructing players on the run and on the fly and in practice. but they're just very, very good at getting a good number of plays in. They run their drills very quickly. A lot is going to depend, obviously, for Scranton Prep in that week 1 game on the health of Will McPartland. You and I both know he suffered that knee injury last year in the state playoffs, the torn ACL. It required some surgery.
Right.
Forced him to miss his lacrosse season. He is playing lacrosse in college. He is on his timeline, going to be just about ready to be cleared for contact for that week 1 game, so we'll see. He looked good at the practice I visited. That's, again, another reason why I like to go to practice.
Yep.
I'm not just hearing it secondhand information. I thought he looked confident in what he was trying to do coming back from that torn ACL. So that's going to be a huge game come week 1. Again, North Pocono has a lot of its roster coming back from last year. People may forget that Evan Wolf and running back Joe Brisky were both hurt and missed a lot of games at the end of the season last year. It certainly caused them to have a lot fewer wins than they had anticipated last year, but they did get that big win in the extra Eastern Conference game, Joe, last year. And look, I laugh sometimes and I chuckle. Okay, they're playing these Eastern Conference games. What are they for? Well, 1, they do get a medal after the game. 2, it's an extra week to practice as a team. And 3, it is a way to build momentum for the off season, which is so important to all these teams coming into the new year.
Absolutely, Joby. So with that being said, let's
You want to jump to Division 2, Joe?
let's Joby, you read my mind. It's like you knew where this was going.
I'm like Karnak today, Joe. What are 5 teams that play in the smaller of the 3 divisions in the Lackawanna Football Conference? I opened my envelope. Division 2, Joe.
It's phenomenal. It's just phenomenal work, Joby. It's phenomenal work. What I want to say just to kick it off is that I Division 2 is going to be very interesting this year. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of
off-season news out of District 2 this year.
Yeah.
Or Division 2, rather, Joe.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, a lot of changes. I mean, George Hawanitz being the coach of Honesdale now, and you know, not only like a lot of changes, but a lot of, you know, coming off, like, not to say this about Dunmore, but by Dunmore's standards, coming off a disappointing season, they'll be looking to get back.
Oh, I think the players would tell you that, Joe.
Absolutely. Yep. And, you know, and also like a team like Mid-Valley coming off a great season and having to, you know, move on from Jacob Lesher, who graduated, who ended up being our Times-Tribune Male Athlete of the Year. You know, Lakeland trying to get back in the game. Western Wayne coming off a great year, but they have to replace a lot, including Josh Vinton. West Scranton, you know, coming off an 0-10 season, trying to improve this year after, you know, 4 of their games they lost by an average of 8 points, you know, last year. So just, like you said, Joby, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot, you know, that we're going to be seeing this year out of Division 2. Yeah,
Joe, I think Division 2 is the great unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I guess that's a good way to put it.
You said it better than I just said it I think I used about 200 words. You used about 3, so.
But that's just the truth, Joe. And look, one of the real big off-season stories, and don't get me wrong, Joe, it pales in comparison to Taylor Swift's announcement on the Heights that she's releasing a new album.
Everything does, Joey.
But when Weston Unoni transferred from Susquehanna to Dunmore, that news spread like wildfire in the spring because he was such a high-profile athlete. And again, he certainly improves Dunmore's team.
Yep.
And he would improve any team he transferred to, or if he stayed at Susquehanna. He's that talented an athlete.
Right.
And he had gone to various junior prospect camps this summer and really put up some impressive numbers. Now, when I visited Dunmore's practice, I, of course, wanted to see how he has adapted to the Dunmore culture.
Yep.
and I wanted to see how he's kind of going to be used by the Bucks. But as fate would have it, I went to Dunmore on a defensive day when they were practicing defense. But even though I did pay close attention to Weston and his drills and everything that he did, he ran some scout team offense. I came away very impressed, Joe, with the amount of time the Dunmore football players had to have put in the weight room during the course of the offseason and early summer, because this was a team that was really filled with a lot of sophomores last year. Had to replace a big senior class from a team that went to the semifinals in Class 2A 2 years ago. And those sophomores were counted on to play big roles.
Yep.
The Dunmore last year. And Joe, one of the things that fans have to understand, I don't care how talented your young football player is in junior football or freshman football, okay? When you come up to the varsity and you are a sophomore or a freshman, and certainly a freshman, you're at a disadvantage physically when you're going up against juniors and seniors, especially seniors who are 18.
Right.
They're young men.
Right.
Okay? So you as a fan or a parent have to understand there is a learning curve in football more than any other sport that you play at the high school level. Okay. So I see these Dunmore kids, these linemen, Joe, they are monsters. And they are physically fit and able to run. They're going through the cone drills and the calisthenics and hitting the bag, and they could really move. So I'm really, really intrigued by what Dunmore is going to bring to the table this year. And that'll lead me into another discussion, which you must remind me about later on in the show. But you mentioned the two big heavy hitters that Division II will be without this year. Jacob Lesher from Mid-Valley, who was our Times-Tribune overall athlete of the year last year, and Western Wayne running back Josh Lincoln. These guys really had great careers, not just single years, careers. Okay. So, and those teams shared the division title last year.
Yep.
Mid-Valley has quite a few guys back from last year who really helped that team get over the hump and win its first division championship since 1991. Okay. So I'm looking to see how those players and that team matures and how the leadership takes over within that program from those experienced veteran players to make up for the loss of Jacob Lesher on both sides of the football. And from what I saw at the practice at Mid-Valley, Joe, very impressive for Mid-Valley, the way the seniors have kind of stepped up and taken that role over. You mentioned George Hawanitz, head coach at Honesdale. He brought a couple of assistant coaches in with him that he's very familiar with. Jason Sepkowski, he was a former head coach at North Pocono. My good buddy Dave Rebar, who is also a musician, Joe, you should catch some of his concert series when you're free.
I have actually.
He's an outstanding musician. He's also an experienced head coach and has some collegiate background as well as a coach. He's with George there at Honesdale, and the kids have really taken to them. Look, it's always a culture shock, Joe, when you change that dynamic at the head coaching position. Paul Russick did a great job there with Honesdale, got the program to its first winning season in a decade, if not more. And now that culture has been shifted a little bit. We know where George Hawanitz comes from. Joe, he won a state football title as a quarterback at Valley View.
Right.
He was the head coach at arguably the most tradition-filled program with the most passionate fan bases in Lackawanna County.
Yep.
He comes in with certain expectations, and I think the kids have really gravitated to that. And they looked impressive, Joe. Don't be sorry. Of course, everybody wants to say, we might surprise some people. I'm not going to be surprised if Honesdale has a good season. They've got quality athletes there, and Coach Hawanitz and this staff are going to work hard with that group. And you threw in Lakeland there, Joe. Listen, 2 years removed from what was arguably one of the more exciting teams we've had here in this area. They don't often get enough credit for just how dominant a football team that was in 2022. You remember the size of that offensive line, Joe?
Oh, God, yeah.
They had three guys who were 6'4" or better.
Yeah.
They had Lakota Dupree, who's a Division I collegiate football player. They had Johnny Siemens out there making big plays. Domenico Spatero, who read defenses like you read novels. It was a great football team. But, Joe, that team took really heavy graduation losses.
Right.
And it's taken 2 years for them to rebuild.
Right.
And this group, again, Coach Dave Porchik's playing a lot of sophomores. But I think this is a very athletically gifted team and a team with a little bit of a shift in attitude where, hey, it's not fun to lose.
No.
High school football, it's not fun to lose. It's not fun to practice all summer. It's not fun to lift weights all off season. It's not fun to have to go out in the cold and the rain and be practicing or putting in the workouts. It's not fun to practice in 90 degrees. But it's made worse when you don't pick up the victory. So I think this group's a very determined group. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of question marks here in Division II, Joe, to say the least.
Absolutely. And I must mention, Joby, shout out to Dave Rebar. I was trying to figure out the band, but yeah, Cosmic Kids. I saw
That's
them
right.
2 weeks ago. They're excellent. They kind of like went through the decades, 80s, 90s, 2000s. So it was, shout out to him because I had a great time there. But
Joe, I hope you threw a couple of your extra coins into his fedora he puts out.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, but anyway, getting back to the,
You want to go to Division III already, Joe?
I think I do. I think we actually covered, Division II quite well there. Joby, I've got to say you're doing a fantastic job on this podcast.
Well, we're doing it shots.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because maybe you'll just do a terrible job the rest of the way. But you're killing it so far. You're killing it.
Let me sip my green tea, Joe.
Yeah. I'll vamp for a minute here. So we've got Division III. Now we have Riverside, Lackawanna Trail, Old Forge, Carbondale area, my alma mater, Holy Cross, and Susquehanna. This is obviously you look at this division and your eyes go straight to Riverside and Lackawanna Trail. They're going to have, obviously Riverside, you've got Tavion Branch, Rutgers commit coming back. So that's obviously massive for the Vikings, but they do need to replace Chase Tedonio and Richie Kostoff. And Lackawanna Trail, kind of the same deal. You've got to love that Isaac Ryan is coming back. Be exciting to see him on the wrestling mat as well this year, but they have to deal with replacing Demetrius Douglas, who it's funny every time. I may have covered them maybe just once or twice last year, but I know you've heard it too. You feel like every question you ask, it kind of started with Demetrius Douglas. It's just like, well, he leads the way, it's just like, so that's a team that obviously had a heartbreaker, last year in the state playoffs, losing to a very, very good Muncie team and Austin Johnson. But, those are obviously the teams that stick out. And, speaking of changes, Susquehanna, Kyle Cook, the return, so, and, obviously a few schools there, an Old Forge team looking to get back on track, and, Holy Cross and Carbondale area just trying to build up. So, Joby, when it comes to Division III, what are we looking at?
A lot of optimism in Division III, Joe. Yeah. We start the season with Riverside being ranked third in Class 2A in the state, and Lackawanna Trail being ranked third in Class 1A in the state. So high expectations for those two programs. You mentioned a lot of returning starters on both those teams. Yeah. Okay. You mentioned Tavion Branch. He's going to be a handful, Joe. He was so impressive at practice. Now, remember, not only does very few teams in the Lackawanna Football Conference have someone comparable to him, but certainly Riverside doesn't. So it makes it very difficult for him at a practice to get a real good look. Okay. He's going to dominate no matter who you put across from him. But I will say this. there are some linemen at Riverside who could at least hang in there with him, and that made things very interesting. So that he left that practice saying, you put Braden Rose at the quarterback position, which is where he will play. We know how dynamic an athlete and playmaker he can be on the basketball court. If that translates to him playing quarterback in that kind of mold of Corey Tallarico, Riverside's really going to give team fits. Now, again, I wanted you to remind me, so I'm going to remind myself because I knew I couldn't count on you.
Yeah, never can.
Riverside and Dunmore play in week 1.
Yep, big game.
So we are going to be off and running, finding out a great deal about two of the better teams in our league going head-to-head right there in week 1. So that's a real interesting matchup I'm looking forward to. For Trail, Joe, look, Trail has a great pedigree. Okay, they've won district championships now 4 years in a row. Before that, they won a bunch in a row. Steve Jervis has done a great job in carrying on the tradition and building off of the foundation that Coach Jeff Wisilchak put in place in the late 90s, early 2000s, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So, great pride in the program over there at Lackawanna Trail. And a lot of talent back from that team that gave Muncie all it could handle. In fact, came within a whisker of beating Muncie in the state playoffs. However, what I will say about Trail, and I know the coaching staff there knows, only have 29 players on the roster.
Yep.
So, you know, last year, you don't know this, I know this because I was told in confidence, Lucas Evans played the entire season on a torn ligament in his knee.
Oh, my God.
He can't do that again.
No.
It's just hard for a high school kid to endure that. Now, he has had it repaired, and so he's back 100%.
Right.
Holden Edwards suffered a very serious knee injury last year.
Yes.
He was out at the end of the season. That was a big factor. He's back now at 100%. But if you lose two guys like that this year, it could be a real tough sledding for Lackawanna Trail because it has a very challenging schedule this year.
Certainly.
On the road at Berwick, okay, that's really going to be a tough game for a Class 1A program, okay?
Yep.
You mentioned Carbondale area. Hey, listen, that program reached the District 2 Class 3A playoffs. And if I had told you at the beginning of the year after a 40-18 loss to Lakeland in week 1 that Carbondale area would finish as the number 1 ranked defense in all of the Lackawanna Football Conference. Now, again, competition is different in each division, and Carbondale area certainly had a portion of their schedule where they really knocked some teams around. But still, they had an outstanding defense, and several of those players are back.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, Joe, I was at their practice yesterday. The Chargers are fired up for this season, and the big week 1 game against Lakeland at home at the Andrew J. Serra Sports Complex. That should be another really intriguing week 1 matchup. And look, Old Forge is Old Forge. Mike Schuback is still there. Shane Schuback's an assistant coach. They're going to play physical football.
Right.
They're going to come with that grit and that Old Forge toughness. They're still stinging a little bit a la Dunmore from last year, not happy with the overall season. But again, had that extra game and that Eastern Conference playoff win over Holy Cross, build some momentum, build some confidence, get some reason to work out in the offseason. And I think Old Forge is going to be back. And it will be interesting to see how Susquehanna players kind of reload and play under the Kyle Cook regime.
Yeah.
With his coaching staff and their philosophies, how they kind of adapt to that change. It shouldn't be too dramatic. A lot of these players know Kyle. His son's on the team this year, so he's familiar with a lot of the players already. And I think it will be a nice, smooth transition. And Holy Cross, Joe, they've got some size this year.
Love it.
They have a couple of big players out there. Again, few and far between in terms of numbers. But the Wodarskis, Hayden and Leland are the twins. They're in their 4th season as starters in the backfield. Should be an interesting year for Holy Cross this year as well.
I love it. We look to futures bright, Joby, as always.
You always do, Joe.
Yeah, that's right.
That's quite a creed.
That's right. You know it. Joby, I think I'd like to cover that Riverside Dunmore game. We'll see what we'll see what the boss assigns here, but
Joe, that's no longer
be a really good game.
That is no longer up to me. I have relinquished.
I was gonna say, no, that is not up to you.
Now that we're such a small staff, I have let go and relinquished some of my responsibilities.
That is completely fair. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. As we as we keep mentioning, Joby, we have three writers, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I believe there's 13 games on the first Friday. So,
Joe, listen, I know you're a big Star Trek fan, but I can't teleport myself to games.
beam me to Scranton, beam me to
Joe,
Carbondale.
I'm going into the 2025 season, which is my 27th year covering high school football. Just going to give my best.
That's right. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep providing some great content. We'll be, Joby. I assume we'll start our weekly podcast here, our weekly appearances back up next week. We will have our first Athlete of the Week. Our Athlete of the Week program will start up on Tuesday. So we'll get the Athlete of the Week here. We'll get an interview, and we'll be up and at 'em again, Joby. Full force. So we'll obviously get deeper into we'll probably kind of preview these games as I think you're going to sign off and start doing the capsules for the
already started.
see you're already started. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to getting back on the sideline, Joby, and
looking forward to having you, Joe.
Absolutely. Providing video, providing stories. It should be an interesting year, that's for sure, as we had kind of talked about. Like I said, before we sign off, again, Game Face Preview Edition comes out on Sunday. We'll also have the reveal of the Times-Tribune Top 10 for the LFC on Sunday as well. And plenty of content as the fall sports season gets underway. Obviously, it's weird to say, but golf is full force right now. Tennis starts on Monday. So that we're there, Joby. We're there. So
you're not trying to tell me I'm going to be busy, are you?
Believe it or not, Joby, you are still going to remain very busy.
Funny how that works out, my friend. Hey, I'll tell you what, you have your people try to squeeze me in and talk to my people, and we'll get on the calendar in a regular schedule here for you. I'll come on anytime.
I appreciate it, Joby. Listen, we have, I talked to my old buddy, Mike Dargatis, actually yesterday. That podcast
Very
is
good
up.
podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Mike's a great guy, and it was fun to have him on. Subscribe here. Follow Joby Fawcett on Facebook. Joby Fawcett, the Times-Tribune, that is. Follow Times-Tribune Sports on Facebook and on Instagram. Go to the website, thetimes-tribune.com/sports, and everywhere else I'm missing, on X at SportsTT. Follow along. It's gonna be another. We're about to be full force into this. Obviously, Joby, it never actually ended, so we'll just go from here. But we appreciate
keep fighting, Joe.
We just keep fighting. So we appreciate all you listeners out there. It'll be fun to talk to you every week, Joby, and it's always a blast to talk to the athletes. They were absolutely excellent last year, so I'm looking forward.
Good to be back, Joe.
It's good to be back. So we'll sign off here for now, but we will return very soon. You'll probably see us.